thought for this video was going to be practicing drawing objects realistically for 30 days. Then for some reason, I just decided to do 30 days of portrait study. I've always really admired Hedy Lamarr, so I decided that she would be my subject for the next 30 days. For those of you who don't know, Hedy Lamarr was an Austrian-born American actress and inventor. Unfortunately, because Hedy was a woman and was astonishingly pretty, nobody really took her intellect into consideration, and it turns out that Hedy was an incredible inventor. Since Hedy was primarily self-taught, all of her spare time between acting and whatever else she was doing was devoted to designing and drafting inventions, which included an improved traffic stoplight and a tablet that would dissolve in water to create a flavored carbonated drink. Most notably, however, was Hedy's development of frequency hopping, which not only helped during World War II, but laid the foundation for the glorious Wi-Fi network we have today. I knew when I started this first sketch that I was not going to be very accurate. Sometimes you just have to shake the cobwebs off before you can really get started on a good study. So I knew from the start that this one was not going to be quite right. The shape of her nose is wrong. The shape of her mouth is wrong. The shape of her face is wrong, but we all have to start somewhere. When it comes to stylizing portraiture, I'm a huge fan of Phil Noto's work. Okay, yes, largely because he illustrated my favorite Black Widow run, but also because his style is this great combination of sketchy, imperfect lines, strong line work, especially in the face and the eyes, and the sort of like formless shape he gives everything else. So mostly his faces are where the detail and the focus are, and everything else is just kind of this soft blur. The second portrait didn't fare much better. While it's a very good portrait, it is still not Hedy. And even though I love this sketch, I can still see where I'm kind of missing the mark. So again, her nose is incorrect. It's too wide. Her face shape is wrong. Her face is much more rounded than I'm making it. I do really love this sketch. I think the sketch turned out pretty great. It's just not what I was going for. One of the things I struggle with when doing portrait work is maintaining the space between the end of the eye to the ear, especially in more of a 3/4 portrait. I think as artists, we all kind of struggle with negative space, or at least I do. You want so badly to get all the details in there that you don't realize that there's like an entire hand width of space between the corner of your eye and your ear. And when you don't put that in your portrait work, your faces look really squished and weird. It turns out I forgot to film portrait number 3, but that one turned out pretty okay. I was closer, and honestly, I'm just killing all of these hands, which is perhaps my favorite part. So with portrait number 4, I felt that I was getting fairly close. Her face shape is still incorrect. I'm still trying to make it too narrow instead of giving her enough space for her jaw and her ear. I think the actual facial features are way closer. Shocking no one, I also forgot to record days 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is not fantastic, especially because day 8 was the one day I got a pretty accurate photorealistic portrait done. Okay, photorealistic might be pushing it a little bit, but it looks like Hedy Lamarr. I can tell that it's Hedy Lamarr. I'm not really sure who this is, but she turned out looking kind of like Madeline Petch. You know, that girl who plays Cheryl from Riverdale. She's definitely not Hedy Lamarr, but it's a cute portrait. And like, if you've ever wondered how many times I erase a portrait or really anything while I'm drawing, the answer is a lot. It's a lot. And unfortunately, the like color pencils don't erase very well at all. So there's always some ghosting left behind, which is fine, but sometimes I have to switch pencil colors because it gets way too hard to figure out which line is the line I actually wanted. So far, I think the Madeline portrait is the one that's closest to the style I'm trying to develop and emulate. I still have a lot of work to go, but I feel like I'm getting closer to where I want to be. Attempt number 12 is the one that thoroughly kicked my ass. You know, sometimes you sit down and the drawing just happens, and sometimes you sit down and you don't remember how to draw at all. That day was one of those days. I erased her face so many times, I damaged the paper in my sketchbook. I managed somehow to get her eyes and nose a closer shape to what they were supposed to be. For some reason, the mouth just was not mouthing. I could not get it to do what I wanted. I could not get it to sit the way I wanted. This entire filming session is just me struggling and trying different colored pencils so I can see what I'm doing better, maybe. Trying to block in the shadows to figure out where her lips are supposed to be, because knowing where they're supposed to go apparently was not enough. Eventually, I just gave up on that one. I slapped a mouth on there, I called it quits, and we just moved on the next day. For this one, I tried to do a little bit more of a structured portrait. I sort of know how to use the grid method, the Loomis method. Do I really follow it? No. But I thought for this day I would put more of an effort into the structural foundation of the portrait versus trying to put in all of the extra details and hoping that it works. There is something to be said for having a good foundation before you build all of the facial features on top of it. And for this one, I got her face shape almost right. Her nose is slightly too turned down, but I do really love the way the two pencils I used in this sketch made it look in terms of creating those shadow shapes and differentiating them from the features of her face. Again, another banger of a hand. And while these are all objectively decent drawings, they're just not what I was hoping for. When it comes to learning anything in, well, not just the art world, anything at all, repetition is often what makes things easier to develop. Blah, 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 practice makes progress. But in doing the same thing over and over, you kind of start to figure out where it is you're, I guess not necessarily going wrong, but where it is you need improvement. I don't know if it's just me, but for some reason I really hate adding pupils to people's eyes. I always think portraits look better without any eyeballs in them. Day 14 was the last portrait. I know I said I was going to do this for 30 days, but you know what? Sometimes life just gets really lifey and you do the best you can. This last one is actually the second closest I got to actually capturing what I consider a moderately photorealistic portrait. I don't think it's as good as the 8th one I did, but she's pretty up there. I think for this one, I got the majority of her facial features correct, as well as her face shape. And overall, I feel this one just looks like Hedy Lamarr. So what did I learn? For starters, you definitely should not go in and start adding in all of the detailing before you have placed the majority of your face shapes. I often build out the basic face shape and also build out the hair so that I have something to frame that face shape with. But properly measuring and relating each feature to the other features of the face really helps the portrait look like the person it's supposed to look like. I've never really been one to measure because portrait drawing wasn't something I was particularly interested in until recently. I did end up going back with this last one and tweaking the shape of her cheek as well as some of her other facial features. Her cheekbone was too prominent at first, so I went back through, I narrowed it down a little. It's also pretty difficult to draw when I am sitting down and looking at the sketchbook flat out in front of me instead of tilted up at an angle. Things get fairly distorted when you can't look straight on at your work. It was also a good way to embrace imperfection and continue to move forward with the project. I know that I get incredibly frustrated when things don't come out perfectly the first time I try them, and working on my sense of perfectionism and letting that go is definitely something I need to focus on. Even though only 2 of the 14 portraits I did hit that level of recognition I was going for, I still made several successful portraits. And just because something didn't turn out the way you wanted it to the first time doesn't mean that you can't redraw it. I have about 20 pages left in this current sketchbook, and I kind of want to fill them before I leave for Greece in May. This way I can bring a fresh sketchbook with me and not have to worry about running out of pages. So we'll see how far I can get. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.